The movie begins with Lindy Lewis, a young woman suffering from intermittent explosive disorder, which makes her react with violent rage to even minor provocations. This condition is linked to her body's unusually high cortisol levels, giving her enhanced strength and speed. Her parents, unable to manage her violent outbursts, eventually have her institutionalized. When the institution fails to control her, she is placed in the army, but this also proves ineffective. Finally, Lindy undergoes an experimental but effective treatment, a self-administered shock therapy delivered through an electrode-lined vest that she must wear constantly. This treatment allows her to lead a normal life. Sometime later, Lindy's therapist and the designer of her shock vest, Dr. Ivan Munchin, encourages her to go on a date. He believes this will help test her ability to have a healthy, normal relationship. Eventually, Lindy agrees to go out with an accountant named Justin, hoping to lead a more normal life. Although she almost canceled at the last minute, she decided to give it a try because Justin seemed like a nice person. During their date, a waiter repeatedly ignored Justin's meal requests, which frustrated Lindy. However, she managed to stay calm. But when Lindy overheard a waitress making fun of Justin in the restroom, she tried to use her shock vest to control herself, but it didn't work. She lost control and attacked the waitress before leaving the restaurant without telling Justin. Lindy returns to Dr. Munchin to have her electroshock remote fixed. Munchin reveals that the remote isn't broken. She has simply built up a tolerance to the electricity. He increases the dosage and encourages Lindy to pursue a real relationship with Justin, noting that she seems to like him. Taking Munchin's advice, Lindy contacts Justin for a second date. During the date, they discuss their pasts, with Lindy revealing she used to be a bouncer, and Justin mentioning he only has one client, a man named Barry. They go back to Lindy's apartment and begin to have sex. When Justin sees Lindy's voltage therapy vest and electrodes, he reassures her that it's not a big deal and starts to remove the vest. The next morning, Justin gives Lindy a camera, and she is deeply touched by his thoughtful gift, expressing her gratitude. When he asks about her medical equipment, she reluctantly explains her disorder. Lindy wants him to stay longer, but Justin has to return to his job as an accountant. Before leaving, he invites her to dinner at his place, which makes Lindy incredibly happy. Excited, Lindy visits Dr. Munchin to tell him that his theory worked and that she really likes Justin. Munchin insists they have a session to deal with her feelings, but Lindy leaves to take pictures with the camera Justin gave her. As Lindy prepares for dinner, she receives a message from Justin saying he might be late. When she calls him, Detective Vickers answers and informs her that Justin has been murdered. Lindy goes to the police station, where Vickers and Detective Nevin tell her that Justin's body was found in a dumpster. Lindy replays her time with Justin and begins to spiral, using the vest to shock herself repeatedly. Feeling that the detectives aren't taking the case seriously enough, she decides to investigate on her own. She visits Dr. Munchin, claiming that the vest is no longer working. Munchin gives her a sedative to calm her down. Once she wakes up, Lindy insists she needs to find out who murdered Justin. Munchin advises her to let it go and allow the police to do their job, warning that it could change her irreversibly. Ignoring his advice, Lindy calls the detectives, pretending to have more details about Justin's murder. This ploy is to get them out of the precinct so she can access the evidence room related to Justin's case. Lindy then heads to Justin's house and finds his phone. Detective Vickers calls her, informing her that they know where she is and that Detective Nevins is on the way to arrest her. Lindy has a brief encounter with Nevins, who tries to shoot her. However, Lindy manages to distract Nevins and escape, taking Justin's car. After a brief car chase during which Vickers is injured, Lindy manages to get away. She goes to an electronics store to find someone who can hack Justin's phone and meets Andy, a young girl who is a skilled hacker. Andy successfully locates Justin's client, Barry Kasparsky, a notorious gangster who is the last person to contact Justin. Upon discovering that Barry is in an abandoned building overseeing an underground fight, Lindy confronts him and demands to know who killed Justin. Barry agrees to tell her, but only if she fights his top 3 fighters simultaneously. Lindy wins the fight, but Barry attempts to have her killed anyway. She manages to incapacitate both Barry and the gunman, then threatens Barry with jumper cables to get him to talk. Barry reveals that his boss, a billionaire recluse named Gareth Faisal, ordered Justin's murder. Despite getting the information, Lindy electrocutes Barry with the jumper cables. Meanwhile, Detective Nevin visits Vickers in the hospital. Detective Nevin warns Vickers about Lindy's history of violence and assault due to her anger issues. After Nevin leaves the room, Lindy appears and thanks Vickers for warning her earlier. She tells him that she has identified the murderer and asks him to arrest Gareth, but Vickers explains that they can't act without evidence. When Vickers asks why she is so determined to find Justin's killer, despite only knowing him for a short time, Lindy explains that he was the only genuinely nice person she had met recently. Moved by her concern, Vickers gives her Faisal's address, but warns her not to go alone. Nevin arrives and tries to arrest Lindy while they are discussing the situation, but Lindy manages to escape again. Lindy arrives at Faisal's building where his head of security, Delacroix, knocks her out. She wakes up, restrained in a white room, her electroshock vest removed. Delacroix threatens her, but then sends her back to her apartment in a car, keeping the vest. Meanwhile, Faisal orders Delacroix to eliminate Lindy upon hearing she was asking about Justin and suspects Faisal's involvement in his death. During the ride back, Lindy misses her vest, tries to get out of the car, but the driver refuses. She attacks him, causing the car to crash. Lindy then goes to Dr. Munchin to obtain a new vest before returning to her apartment. She notices signs that someone has been inside, specifically. The number 9 on her door has been moved. Lindy sneaks in through her window and discovers that Faisal's men have rigged an explosive device on her doorway. She manages to disarm it and takes the explosive with her, and sets up another bomb to fake her death. As she leaves the building, she runs into Vickers, who wants to arrest her for her safety but gets distracted when her flat explodes, allowing her to disappear again. Vickers calls her, trying to persuade her to let the authorities handle Faisal. However, Lindy is convinced they won't arrest him and decides to continue her pursuit on her own. Lindy dismisses Vickers' concerns and continues with her plan. She makes it to Faisal's office building but is apprehended once more by Delacroix. Delacroix brings her to Faisal, who admits to murdering Justin and many other innocent people. Struggling to control her rage, Lindy is knocked out by Delacroix with a hit to the head. When she wakes up, Lindy finds herself bound to a chair. She escapes and attacks Delacroix, forcing him to reveal the location of Faisal's secret office. Confronted by other guards, a battle ensues. After defeating the security officers, Lindy arrives at the Faisal's office, only to find that he has already been murdered. To her shock, Justin enters the room. Lindy is stunned, having seen Justin's burial. Justin explains that he is a CIA agent who used her to get to Faisal because the agency didn't want to get involved directly. He reveals that Dr. Munchin recommended her because he works for them and his research is funded by the CIA. Justin tries to torture her with an electric shock, but the equipment no longer affects her as she has become resistant to it. Lindy retaliates by throwing her bag at him and fleeing the building. A bomb she had taken from her apartment explodes, killing Justin. After escaping, Lindy confronts Dr. Munchin and accuses him of manipulating her for his personal gain. He apologizes, claiming he was unaware of Justin's plan. Vickers and Nevin arrive to find Lindy pressing Dr. Munchin against the wall. Initially fearing she is trying to kill him, they shoot her in the leg, but they soon realize she was handcuffing him to hand him over for arrest. Vickers, impressed by her determination, helps transport her to the hospital. They assist her in covering her tracks and return her device, which they had confiscated. Vickers asks Lindy out. After healing from her injuries and being discharged from the hospital, Lindy returns to her old flat to collect her belongings. In the closing scene, she is visited by a mysterious woman who reveals herself to be Justin's superior. The woman explains that Lindy has been under surveillance for years and that they want to use her rage to take down bad people. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this.